Okay, we are live a little earlier than usual. It's December the 3rd, 2024. It's crucial we get on today because today is the prophesied date of the UFO incursion, and this has been circulated. I get my word from the sources, and this is all over Q Street, is right now they are all collectively expecting, because of some supercomputer prediction from 2009, which stated that if certain things happened, other things would follow. And from its reasoning, it concluded that Donald Trump going on Joe Rogan would be some kind of a, quote, temporal marker. So just to give you some backdrop on this, oh my God, alien invasion set for 12/3, get your popcorn and pizza, from Cliff High. It's not like any kind of guaranteed date, but they decided that the temporal marker was Rogan on Trump. And for those who buy into what he's saying, he believes that a visible contention, a war between space aliens and Space Force, or I don't know, it's going to happen above us. And it's going to be some kind of a spectacle. So let's go back to the original tweet. Of course, today is the 3rd. So here's how it works. Here's how the Joe Rogan Donald Trump connection came into it. What he was saying is that the software added up all kinds of stuff based on words and based on everything that we're basically talking about and publishing, and it said that there would be some type of a marker, and we would see, quote, in the skies, UFOs versus jets, like Independence Day. Now again, this came out in 2009, and I'm going to play a short clip here.
In 2009 that had been reinforced over the years from 2009 through to 2015 that said that 39 days after this TM took place.
So 39 days ago was the Trump-Rogan interview.
We would have the big, and this is where Igor and I did our fighting, we would have this visible contention that would dissolve into a melee. And at the time, and even in our even in our conversations here recently.
Now the argument is because of a supercomputer. But now let's get to the present. Has there been a UFO invasion yet? Asked the Mud Flood Society. Well, I don't know if this is related, but this just happened to pop up, and this has to do with something going on in New Jersey.
Night sky.
It's kind of unsettling. They're not up for 15 minutes, they're up for hours. Some are very big, probably the size of a car.
Mike Walsh says he's seen hundreds of them over the past 2 weeks from his Randolph backyard and has the video to prove it.
They kind of go slow.
So New Jersey residents are seeing, quote, drones, some the size of a car, and they've been told by the authorities not to approach downed drones.
They come towards you, then they'll change direction a little. They're all going different ways.
The drones have been spotted all over Morris County. Morristown police sent an alert to residents Sunday saying they are aware of drone activity and that if a drone crashes or lands, do not approach or handle it. The FBI's Newark field office would only say it is working with other law enforcement agencies to figure out what's going on, but at the moment doesn't have enough information to share.
So there you go. We have our visible contention in the sky, prophecy fulfilled, as per the temporal marker predicted by, prophesied by, a supercomputer back in 2009. Joe Fior says, I was just in at Walmart and I heard loud airplane noises over the speakers. Yeah, as a general rule, if you see lights in the sky, it's an airplane till proven otherwise. If you hear something, it's an airplane until proven otherwise. I never enter into the realm of possibility UFOs because everything that's up there is identified with very, very rare exception, but there is no evidence for alien craft, despite what Tucker Carlson says. And remember, Tucker Carlson also says that an alien scratched his back in bed, and he's got scars to prove it. Let me play a few more seconds from this news report about New Jersey residents being swarmed by drones in Morristown County.
People want to know what's going on. I think more people are coming around to that, this is going on and maybe it's not good.
Nancy Reed didn't want to show her face on camera, but says she's seen the drones every night since November 18th.
I can see them right out my bedroom window. I can watch them. Last night was about 5:30, so it was earlier. But it's normally anywhere between like 7:30 and 10:30, they're out here. Never during the day. Nobody ever sees them during the day.
One thing.
Just all rumor, and people believe anything. They're Haitian drones, and they're snatching the cats. like the cat eating stories back in the news. I don't even want to address it necessarily, but because a lot of the people who shape these narratives, they don't care if it's true or false. To them, it's just ammunition in the Psy-War. All right, let's see who's here in the chat. We've got Matt X, Mudflood, J5, Let's Go, Frugal, Snowbird, Ears Up, Thrustazar, thanks for joining, Alfred, Yinglet, and Z Proxy. Truman B3000 says Storm Antarctica. Hey, that's in less than 2 weeks. In fact, I'm going to try to get some kind of a interview going with McToon before he leaves. I think we need to have a pre-action conversation and then an after-action review, because how is this going to shape future conversations about cosmography, whatever the result is. Cubstar says auto hoax, and we can't show them now. Yeah, exactly. It's like everybody has a phone cam. If you're not recording UFOs, something's wrong with you. Because you record somebody going crazy on the subway, but you're not going to record alien craft. Ears Up says police drones. Yeah, that's most likely it. It's most likely police drones. I'd almost guarantee that's it. It's always the simplest. You know, take out your Occam's razor. I think I've already, in my view, I've promoted, I think I put together this idea that Bigfoot is most likely a bear. Because bears are bipedal at times. They do walk on their hind legs. And it's more likely that people are seeing bears than a supernatural creature that's never been observed. So, are these drones enemies, or is it likely something with an easy explanation? But as far as the police telling people not to approach them, I don't know. I only brought this up because today's the day that there's supposed to be some kind of a UFO invasion, if you believe that kind of stuff, which obviously we aren't believers in it, but we're looking at how the public is rendered credulous and they will believe anything. Check this out. Kash Patel, and this is going to be the new FBI director, he's a total QAnoner.
He's also repeatedly praised QAnon, one saying, quote, "There's a lot of good to a lot of it. Q has been so right on so many things."
And he wears Punisher socks. So we have that. Here's a short update from McToon. Again, he's going to Antarctica.
In Antarctica, and that's what we're going to go there to test. But we're going to do several other experiments.
Now, is he going to come back changed? Is he going to come back perhaps shaken to his core? Or are his biases simply going to be confirmed? What are your opinions on this? We still have a few more days of conjecture. But whatever he sees or doesn't see, that Saturn V rocket model behind him is literally an obelisk, an idol to the god of mystery Babylon, the earth god. So it's still a mystery religion. It's still pageantry. It doesn't, whatever happens, it doesn't mean space is real. And it certainly doesn't make the 24-year blooper reel of the ISS, quote, real either. We have to recognize that this isn't a slam dunk, and the people who are stuck on the false dichotomy, because that's what it is. It's actually a false debate. It's what you would call the either or fallacy. It's either as flat as a pancake or it's a ball. What about shape agnosticism? What about even if it is a ball, we cannot trust the authorities to tell us what it really looks like, and instead they give us dumb cartoons. Mudflood said, is he going to enter Antarctica from the opening near southeast of New Zealand? The Christchurch, right? There are 5 gateway cities to Antarctica, and that's probably most likely it. Nothing Major says hi from UK. Clockwork 113 has joined us, as has Frank Mir. Yeah, they're going to be leaving in about a week, and when they come back, the conversation is going to be, there's a 24-hour sun as viewed from the South Pole, from Penguin Country, and this therefore means that the Earth is a ball. So I suspect that Witsit Gets It, who'll be there, will most likely lean into a pre-Copernican geostationary Earth. I still think it's premature to posit a model, because those with access to the ends of the Earth are in the practice of replacing reality with contrivances and fictions whenever it's out of our sight and reach. So we don't know, unless you believe the blue marble. But another thing to consider too is that there is no meaningful distinction between the news on the ground and the news above in everything they show us from space. People just passively assume, they tacitly assume, that all of the footage from space is scientific evidence. No, it's propaganda. America didn't fake the moon landing to trick the Russians and win the space race. The Russians and America colluded in faking space together because all of the governments are in agreement in this matter. Why is that? It's because there's only one government. That's the big secret. There's only one. It's monolithic. It is the new monotheism. Our mass media is, in fact, the world state church. Okay, and heaven, by the way. Heaven is the thing that churches, every religion has this idea of paradise or heaven. And the one they've given us today is one that even the atheists believe in, and it's called space. So space travel, the idea of space travel is synonymous with utopianism. With a better world, if mankind can collectively agree, it's all just a religious endeavor, disguised as something else. Although, based on the symbolism and what I would call the syncretic blend of science fiction and mystery Babylon, it's safe to say it has an esoteric aspect, and space travel may in fact be allegory for higher states of consciousness. That's kind of what the underpinnings would suggest. I'm not saying the astronauts are all privy to this. I mean, they could all just be dupes on some level. I mean, who knows how much in the know these individuals are. That's a separate conversation. Who's in the know, and how much in the know are they? Are they just a part of the political psyops? Are there people who are behind the scenes on fake space and fake terror, fake shootings, etc.? One person who would have been behind the scenes on both would be Stanley Kubrick. And we've been talking about Stanley Kubrick quite a bit, as his movies contain many examples of what we term predictive programming. Joined by the Black Hand Side, X322. Mud Flood Society says Vibes of Cosmos is infinite plane realm and space is fake. Yeah, Vibes of Cosmos would be more trustworthy to me if you'd come out and talk. These anonymous accounts are really shady. But I think his entire premise is that the moon is not a solid object. He calls it a plasma phenomenon. I don't know if that's satisfactory to anybody here, but the one thing that does resonate with me, and it's not pareidolia. I mean, if you look at what he shows, there is a cluster of craters on the moon that do comport nicely with the known continents. And that's one of these instances where it is what it is. You can say it's not, but it kind of is. But we don't know what it means. So I'm not denying that there's something up. I'm just suggesting that what we're shown from outer space is all fakeable, therefore not trustworthy. You can't just... There was a scientist who was working on the James Webb $10 billion telescope, and you can't get a refund on it. It's 1 million miles away. And he supplied a photograph of a piece of meat, a cut of meat, a salami, a slice of chorizo, and he stuck it against a poster with a bunch of stars on it, like a galaxy. And he took this picture and he said, "This is a new star I discovered. It's 42 trillion light years away." And so this piece of meat was believed to be a star by millions of people who shared it because it went viral. And he had to apologize. And I thought, this is a perfect illustration of how the people who claim the intellectual high ground because they believe what they see on the screen are all vulnerable to this particular blind spot, which I generally term visual illiteracy, meaning you can't tell real from fake anymore. But the other side of it is their lack of skepticism when it comes to certain sources. Okay, let's continue. The Mud Flood Society says there is a monolithic secret religion that has the true power, and the nation states have mutable rules and social engineering. Yes, exactly. But they're ultimately united, and they all agree in outer space. You know, even in Iran, where they have a culture of throwing rocks at obelisks, recognizing it as a symbol of Baal, the earth god, they all praise. That's what you're doing. They're praising the burning obelisk when they send the rockets up into space. They have a space program. If you have a space program, then you are therefore a part of the one world religion, and space is its heaven. And it's the perfect heaven. because you have all these different religions competing over who has the right paradise, and the atheists don't believe in paradise, but they believe in space. And so space is kind of the heaven, the umbrella heaven, and that all the others fall beneath it. And this is not new. This was the original concept. If you look back, there's some pretty good articles about these early Russian rocket pioneers who were into something called cosmism. So if you look into Russian cosmism and space communism, you can kind of see where it all goes. But the construct of outer space is really built on panpsychism and the idea of man becoming a multi-planetary species. Elon Musk was quoting this Russian rocket scientist named Konstantin when he said this. A lot of what he says is actually stolen or scripted, you could say. I mean, didn't he just step out of a book by Werner von Braun? Okay, let me catch up on your comments. It's quite a lot. You know, we had 1,000 comments the other night, 1,000 plus. Princess Bear Poker says falafel moon. Well, whatever it is, we haven't landed on it. We have not landed on it. King Ravana says Pearl Harbor inspired Happy Meals this weekend. Who directed Pearl Harbor? How many of you think that was an actual, true, real sneak attack? Yeah, okay, there's something up with that. I'll take a look. It's on 12/7. In fact, before it came out, there was a terrible movie. I think it had Ben Affleck in it, and it was, and like, what was it? I'll pull it up on the screen. It was terrible, but I had to watch it. Didn't have a choice at the time, and it happened to be right before 9/11. So the timing of it was perfect. 2001. So here you go. You got Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Jennifer Garner. So this came out just before 9/11, and it features planes crashing into things, heroes saving the country, and all this stuff. And then again, December 7th. And then 9/11 happens. And it was called that. It was, at the time, they said, this is this generation's Pearl Harbor. So like, that's interesting, because this generation would have known what Pearl Harbor was because they weren't 9/11 with it. So now we were hit with our own Pearl Harbor. Again, Pearl Harbor was a 9/11 event, a catastrophe, a major plot twist. And in this case, we have this sneak attack of our own, of this generation's, and they called it the Pearl Harbor. And I'm like, that's fascinating, because this movie just sort of set the stage for that. No coincidences. It's just priming you. But I'm still going through your comments. There's just quite a lot to catch up on, and I have a list of points of interest. One of the things I want to get into is the documentary I recently watched called Mind Hackers. And Mind Hackers, it was put out by the BBC, and it has many examples of how faulty eyewitness testimony is created. But the most interesting thing about this is it shows how memories can be distorted, altered. And it can be done, so it can be done deliberately. And that's kind of what I would say the Mandela effect is, that whatever your take on it is, and I have some people who are asking me about specific effects, it's actually called the misinformation effect. But yes, your mind is being hacked by a conspiracy theory. And the person asking the questions like, do you remember A or B? That person is actually creating a false memory at that moment. It's a fascinating phenomenon, but it's essentially a combination of gaslighting and retroactive interference, the misinformation effect. Tominoid says, Matrix shows ruined cityscape with two prominent towers after Neo's 3/11 birthday and September 11, 2001 passport. Now that's intriguing. Also consider how Megalopolis, which is about a 9/11-like event. In fact, Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola, was postponed by more than 20 years because of 9/11, because it's primarily about a Russian satellite hitting New York, necessitating a reset of the world. So it's a 9/11-like event, and therefore it wasn't appropriate to release the movie at that time. It wouldn't have had the impact. Then this recent release of it happens to include a lot of real footage from 9/11, cementing the connection, but the main character his name is Adam Driver, looks like Neo. And I thought, okay, that's Neo. That's got to be an intentional allusion to Neo. So Neo's already intertwined with 9/11 and the passport, and 9/11 passports are famous as well because they survived the inferno. But Adam Driver's resemblance to Neo is significant because it's a movie that's basically about 9/11, but on a global scale. And Adam Driver's character interacts with Lawrence Fishburne's character, driving around at night in the rain, green lighting, very Matrixy. And what's more, in the Matrix, Morpheus was communicating to Neo about the secrets of the Matrix, the realm, the space that they were in. In Megalopolis, he is explaining the intricacies of time and how it's an illusion and all these other things, where he's basically Morpheus all over again. So these are intentional connections. So they're making the Neo 9/11 connection a part of the subtext of Megalopolis. And then it goes even deeper when you look into Adam Driver's role in White Noise, which is one of the most famous examples of predictive programming from Netflix. Even the media had to acknowledge it multiple times. It was so obvious because there were actors who were in the movie White Noise who had to be evacuated from their homes, just like in the movie, because psyops imitate art. But in the various news articles, they were saying it's life imitating art. So in other words, you're an extra in a movie about a train crashing, derailing, and there's a major toxic spill. Then a year later, it happens to you. So the media even acknowledged this. But that was one of the great examples. Adam Driver was the face of it. And even in this more recent movie, Megalopolis, Francis Ford Coppola said it's about the fall of Rome, make Rome great again. It's actually Megalon, which is Magalon. So it's definitely about MAGA. And he said it's about certain events that are going to happen very soon. And it really has a lot to do with this Russian satellite hitting New York. Isabel Ann says, Hunter pardoned on the Hunter new moon. How appropriate. I didn't catch that. But that's certainly relevant to my interests. Hunter being pardoned. I read the statement because this just shows that Marco Polo's entire organization, which was meant to have Hunter somehow prosecuted, was a total flop. And Marco Polo is being sued for quite a bit. They've already paid $300,000+ in legal fees. And I'm interested in this case because Marco Polo, the company that is being sued by Biden for hacking his computer, has a co-defendant that I'm also suing. So this is good news for us. And one more thing too. There's a DOJ criminal investigation of Marco Polo right now. So the person I am suing is being investigated by the DOJ for hacking. So I think I'm going to catch up with them very soon. There have been a couple of delays in making a venue change, but it's not a big deal. It's going to work out. Okay, let's continue here. Going through my list of points of interest. Fake alien invasion didn't happen, but there's drones in New Jersey. Now, this is some great work here. This is something that was put together by Synchromorpheus. So we are now looking at predictive programming with an understanding of what it is. There's nothing mysterious about it. It is, in fact, a very well understood phenomenon, and it's intrinsic to what media truly is, not what people think it is. And based on this understanding, we are consistently able to predict where it's going to be, what movies will contain it. And we are pretty much accurate all the time, but if this is true, then you should be able to, as a model, make predictions based on it, and we consistently do. So, for example, one of the main points I make is that the actors that we see on the world stage in the news, supposedly not scripted because they're not in a movie at that moment, are in fact still in character. That they're bringing about messages that they contain inherent in their character with them wherever they go. So, for example, Robert De Niro, with his Trump derangement syndrome, hanging outside of the Trump courthouse. I looked into that and I said, well, based on what we know, this is going to be somehow connecting to the body of concurrent and predictive programming with Trump. and this entire universe of predictive programming examples. And sure enough, De Niro supplies the Joker connection, the headshot connection, the assassination connection through Taxi Driver, the movie The Joker, Deer Hunter, and it's specifically, and this is like extremely specific, Machete. In Machete, Robert De Niro is playing a Trump-like character giving a speech about illegal immigrants when he gets shot, just like Trump did. And then the Patsy, in this case, the character Machete, played by Danny Trejo, gets shot in the ear. His ear explodes. So we have many examples that are very precise, but how did we know to look there? Because we know what we're looking at. We know it's not random. I knew that De Niro wasn't random. I knew that his appearance there was to bring a body of associations right there next to Trump, leading up to the big psyop of the headshot. And we were right. And we've been further vindicated by looking at the source materials and finding that even on 7/13, within an hour of Trump being shot, there were people on YouTube looking up that clip of De Niro because it was so like what happened. These aren't coincidences. If they were random, we wouldn't be able to find them with specificity rapidly as we do. So we have another great example. This one's good. This is from Synchromorpheus. So we were looking into Gremlins 2. And so Gremlins 2, if you recall, has a Donald Trump character. And he is essentially throwing out some 9/11 references. He's giving an interview to the news media, and they put a 9 and 11 in front of him. Let me go and put this up here. I have a note from it first, then I'll play the clip. So Synchro said, I recently watched Gremlins 2, the new batch, for the first time since it came out in 1990. Daniel Clamp, who owns the skyscraper, is based on Donald Trump. Now, the movie takes place in a skyscraper, the whole thing. It has obvious 9/11 predictive programming, and then here's a couple of pull quotes. The sequel to Gremlins is superior to the original, which was quite good. Less violent, more campy, surreal tributes, scores of movies including Wizard of Oz, and it incorporates a Donald Trump parody. So this is deliberately meant to insert Donald Trump into the narrative, but now you have Donald Trump here connected specifically with 9/11 predictive programming. So here's a short clip. You see, right there on the trash can, you see an 11, and there's a 9 on the van. So that's just one. And then the Donald Trump character steps out, and they put a microphone in his face. And it has a 9 and 11, as he's talking about the disaster going on in the tower right then.
That's a false alarm.
So he's talking about the tower disaster.
The building's been evacuated. Sir, is the building on fire? Are you trying to panic New York City?
So they ask him, is the building on fire? Has it been evacuated? Meanwhile, there's a 9/11 right under his face. And Donald Trump, we should say, is, and this is important because he claims it, he was an eyewitness. He saw the plane hitting the towers, the second tower. He saw that one, he said, from his window. So if Donald Trump is an eyewitness to the planes hitting the towers, that means that he's an insider to the operation itself, because we all know the truth of the matter. So this further cements the intentionality behind all these clues. All this foreshadowing in all of the movies preceding big psychological events, psychological warfare operations, or psyops, all of them are deliberate. This is not a coincidence. So we can go ahead and rule that out again, and we're just making the case by treating this as a predictive model. But now there's more. So he went through the soundtrack. Well, first of all, at the very beginning of the scene, you have a man walking by with a sketch and drama jacket on. And it has the, I guess you would have these two faces, the tragedy and comedy, just suggesting it's all just a movie. This is just another clue. But he went through the soundtrack, and in the soundtrack he found additional layering, just cementing what we've been saying, that this is indeed part of a concerted body of symbols. So there's a song in the movie Gremlins 2 that has a soundtrack that incorporates all the themes of 2001: A Space Odyssey, like the Monolith, for example. And I have more details on this track. So he said, the soundtrack features a song by the Thompson Twins called Bombers in the Sky. So Thompson Twins, Twin Towers, Bombers in the Sky. It has sequences in it right out of 2001: A Space Odyssey. And of course, the Monolith has very special significance because of the Monolith Hilton at Ground Zero, which we often talk about. It's an example of predictive programming in the architecture itself. So the music video for Bombers in the Sky begins with a shot of the New York City skyline featuring the Twin Towers. So Thompson Twins, Bombers in the Sky, Twin Towers. They have a song called Lies with a 9/11 reference as well. And you have something flying, looks like into a building, or that actually looks like it. Inspired by 2001: A Space Odyssey. Turns out the whole thing is a fever dream from a hospital bed, and it's all an illusion. So just another example of how this stuff is layered and it's intentional. I mean, you can look at, okay, that's just a coincidence one time. But if it's also involved in the soundtrack, and it has multiple references and it gets very specific, there gets to be a point where you kind of rule out coincidence. And I found many similar things as well. So there's a Leave the World Behind soundtrack worth looking at, because some of the songs also seem to contain more of the same. Predictions for some kind of a blackout to come. Okay, let's see. Thirst says, oh yeah, he said he saw jumpers from his window. That's right. That's right. And he was already in Back to the Future. And Back to the Future is a huge collection of predictive programming for 9/11, and it features, of course, Biff Tannen as Trump. So he's been immersed in this from the very beginning. And then he's in that mattress, is it mattresses or pillows? That mattress company where it's just 9/11 stuff all over the place. All right, let's continue going through my minds.com/infinite plane society. Invisidon thinks that Gladiator 2 might be a prediction for the return of JFK Jr., which I'm already sick of. They say Matt Gaetz is now JFK Jr. in a disguise. I mean, they're so delusional on Q Street. But Ridley Scott's movie about a man who was in the process of freeing a republic but was assassinated as he was freeing it, and allows it to fall back into evil hands, Gladiator 1. The second movie, where the presumed son of the first man, living under a pseudonym, comes back, told his real identity, and then finished what his father started. But then, by this time, he had the support of everyone. So I just ran across this, and it's strange, but there are still people who see like some kind of savior in JFK Jr., strangely enough. Do I think he died on 7/16/1999, the day that Eyes Wide Shut came out? No. I think it's all theater. So he could very well be alive, to be honest. That wouldn't shock me. Does anybody else here think that JFK Jr. really died, knowing that JFK's assassination was hoaxed? I would say it's possible he made an error in judgment and had a bad accident, but the timing of it's very significant, because every single time I look at these things, you can't subtract from it the predictive programming connection. So for example, Dr. Strangelove comes out on 11/22/63, JFK dies. Eyes Wide Shut, JFK Jr. dies, same day. And there's a pretty good breakdown of Eyes Wide Shut from chartword.com, who reads into it a subtext where it might actually be about JFK Jr., which would be played by Tom Cruise. Very interesting take. I might go look into that again soon. Joined by Lucid Streams. Thank you for joining. Okay, let's see here. We're going through my notes. Minds.com/infinite plane society. Last year, Trump's FBI director was selling magic pills that would cleanse your body of the C-19 vax. Yeah, this is Kash Patel, who wears Punisher socks and promotes QAnon. He says mRNA detox. He was selling these pills. You were immune to the propaganda, but are you immune to the shedders? Spike protein recovery system from Warrior Essentials. And I know someone who actually believed in this stuff. Don't want to name names, but in 2020, 2021-ish, Tim Osman did call in, and he did say that his girlfriend caught it from shedders. So if you don't know what shedding is, it's basically the idea that the people who get the pokey are now contagious, and they'll spread this other thing to you, spike proteins. And they believe that you could get sick from spike proteins. It's like an inversion of the mainstream. Like the mainstream has their version of the pandemic, and the alt media has their version. It's the same thing. Hero Paranormal, our likes open. Epic show so far. Yeah, you can like the video. You can vocally express it. You could hit the thumbs. You can share it. But I don't know if we're going to be promoted on YouTube or not. Sometimes I think it's better if we don't make too much noise. I'm playing it very safe. What happened to the satellite in Megalopolis? Soviet satellite crashes to Earth, destroying much of New Rome. Caesar begins building Megalopolis in the ruins, financing it with his family fortune. That's the significance of it. In fact, if you haven't seen the scene, it's very reminiscent of 9/11. And it's important to note here that the movie itself contains footage they filmed on 9/11 while they were there making this movie, which was then delayed by more than 2 decades.
Your Honor.
Now, I got a question. This is what I'm ultimately talking about with the whole Antarctica trip. It doesn't validate the space forgery. Now, looking at the screen here, you cannot tell me, objectively speaking, that this version of the Earth in this movie looks fake. This looks just as real as anything that were shown from the space station. I think you would all agree with that. Therefore, it's all fakeable. They could fake a version of it in the movie theater and it's indistinguishable. You can't say this looks fake because it actually looks just like the regular stuff. It doesn't look any realer. And then my follow-up thought would be, why don't they just purchase some stock footage of Earth from space? But anyway, I'm just saying that there's a qualitative difference between real and fake, and it never really passes the test for me. Now, when this movie was in the theaters, actually in the film festivals, before it even hit the theaters, there was a Russian satellite in space that exploded. And right now, there's a lot of talk about the incoming problem of space junk and how there might be some kind of a debris cloud that might end up landlocking humanity if we don't stop Elon Musk very soon. So here we go, Russian satellite heading towards New York.
Your Honor, you're never going to believe this.
What?
You know that satellite that's coming down over Labrador?
Yes.
Well, it's not coming down over Labrador.
How do they know?
Well, that's just it, sir. They don't know. Not exactly.
Scrolling forward, and I just want to show you the imagery of this thing hitting. So you have the Statue of Liberty, and this was a big theme in the summer. Paris Olympics featured it. Broken Statue of Liberty, the association of nukes, doom, disaster, end of the world, Godzilla, all these themes that kind of threw together this big mashup. But the Statue of Liberty has been consistently depicted as broken or falling. Now here's your predictive programming for space junk or space wars. And now this is very 9/11-y here. You see the towers? Very 9/11-y. You could see why he delayed the movie. Although, I question whether A, it's because he didn't get it out on time, so it wasn't able to be predictive, or if the purpose was to wait. Maybe they wanted to wait. I'm not quite sure. Fascinatingly, in this newer version with Adam Driver, it does connect Neo, which probably wouldn't have been as impact. It wouldn't have been possible to have inserted Neo into the movie subtext if they had released it pre 9/11. All right, moving on. Just something to look forward to. I don't believe in space junk, and just because they're going to Antarctica and possibly observing a 24-hour sun doesn't make space junk real. Okay, non-believers in the world stage unite. That was the last live stream. Tracy Banton said to me, I've been listening to you since 2017, but you made a statement about McDonald's food not being harmful. I beg to differ. The consumption of these dangerous foods will cause health problems, obesity, diabetes, and they will pollute your mind. I know how intelligent you are. You don't really believe this, or do you? So do I believe that Big Macs contain life extension? No, I said it's more likely that they would put life extension in the Big Macs to get more money out of you over a longer period of time than they would want to give you diabetes and obesity and pollute your mind. It's not in the interest of the company if they're driven by greed to destroy their own customer base. So no, I'm more inclined to think it's life extension than poison. I don't know. I haven't tested it. But there are people making bold claims about how dangerous it is. There are people who say that there's babies in the breakfast burritos. Those people alarm me, because if you're aware of a baby eating operation where they're actually serving baby meat and you're not calling the cops, then I just question what your intentions are. It's very shady. If I thought they were serving cats, I would call the cops, much less babies. Next one here. Now, these are some comments I found up on Reddit, but I'll get to those next. This is another one. Ninja Kid. So Ninja JKD, he said, I remember Looney Tunes was spelled Looney Tunes because it was a cartoon spelled the same as tune, but that changed now. I remember, he says. Now, the official explanation is that Looney Tunes is Looney Tunes because it's about the music, not the cartoons, which I don't know if they even called cartoons tunes at that time, but he says he remembers it. Another one, he says here, I remember they said, I see white people in Scary Movie, but that line doesn't exist. But I remember laughing at it because it was so similar to I see dead people in The Sixth Sense. So that's two. This is why I remember it different from our current reality. These are individual Mandela effects. One point I like to make here is that I don't have to debunk every Mandela effect. Mandela effects have been categorically debunked. They haven't been proven to exist. There isn't any kind of evidence of it whatsoever, and all the evidence points towards mind hacking, or rather memory hacking. And memory hacking is a real phenomenon. You can measure it. It's been scientifically studied. It's the cause of faulty eyewitness testimony that lands people in prison. So I'm pretty sure you can say it's objectively realer than the Mandela effect. Okay, and Jedamika on Reddit says here, the fact that so many people are misremembering the same incorrect answer tells us that memory's not at fault. People cannot handle the fact that something is beyond their understanding, so they'll convince themselves they're wrong. Cognitive dissonance kicks in. It goes against what they believe is possible. That's a Mandela effect believer, that people don't want to believe it, or they can't handle the truth. That's projection. Because what is blocking the Mandela affected from seeing through this is they can't handle the truth that they're wrong about something. But there's value in this, because when you recognize how your mind, your memory has been hacked, you can make it unhackable. You can become less vulnerable to these things. It's similar to logical fallacies. And there are many logical fallacies built into the Mandela effect premise anyway. They'll say, everybody knows Timmy fell down the well. And then you ask them, how did he get out? Nobody knows. Everybody knows that Sinbad was in a genie movie, and it was the best movie ever, and it's on TV, and everybody watched it, but it doesn't exist anymore. Okay, well, what was the movie about? In detail. Because if it was so good, you could just reproduce it and then make millions of dollars. and not get sued, because nobody owns the intellectual property of a movie that doesn't exist. Yet no one has come forth to claim it. And I'm still waiting to find people whose family fortune, came from a check from Ed McMahon. Hector Prost says, I feel sorry for those who think memory is 100% accurate. We know memory sucks. There's been enough tests that show that the stronger you think the memory is, the weaker it can be, and memories change. Memories change whenever they are remembered. People think their memories are wrong because reality says they are. Your memories are easier to change than reality. That's an important point. One person here too says, you can't handle memory being changeable, therefore it's the universe changing. This is pure ego. And I agree with that. It's largely ego. You want to believe that you've seen through the matrix, and the Mandela effect gives you this illusion. And hope. For some, there's a lot of hope built into it, and that's why they've dubbed me the God blocker, because they believe that they were on a path to God, and then I got in the way because I debunked it. UFO invasion on Twitter, says Kevin Mooring. Yeah, post a link if you would. I saw there were some drones in Jersey, but I haven't seen the UFO invasion yet. It's supposed to happen today. We got a few other things to talk about. We have Antarctica coming up in a couple of weeks. That should be fun. I'm scrolling through my Twitter feed. I'm not seeing the UFO attacks yet. I guess Nick Fuentes is at the end of his career, leaking sex tapes. Don't even care to look into it. How desperate. I knew a lot of these alt-right figures would disappear after the election. They're desperate to be relevant anymore. Hopefully Laura Loomer doesn't drop one. What's up, Dave? Says, yeah, we're early today. We'll be likely early tomorrow as well. Thundernut6 says, every Mandela is presented on TV. Oh, it is the most, I would say, famous, popular, and socially acceptable conspiracy theory out there. It's probably the only conspiracy theory that doesn't have any sort of political bias to it. That's why I think people like it. This is something I mentioned the other day. I'm going to play a short clip of it. It just bears repeating. So the guy who says he got scratched by a demon and says that aliens are really demons is now saying that they are brought in by NASA through something called summoning, and that they are spiritual beings. So summoning the UFOs. Tucker Carlson.
Now, what I believe is true is that these recoveries have been the result of the summoning of these craft. And that's the word that was relayed to me, the summoning of these craft. So,
like seances. This is getting into Jack Parsons territory. And, Candace Owen did talk about this. She's a recently converted Catholic, and she was calling NASA pagan. But what she didn't bring up, maybe she didn't know, is that on the moon, Neil Armstrong, the first thing he did is they performed a Catholic mass. They actually took the communion and drank the wine on the moon. And that information was suppressed for a little while. So you couldn't really call them Satanists. You could maybe infer from their Catholic rites some older tradition, but it's certainly the case that they were practicing Catholic rites on the moon, not devil worship. But again, here's Tucker talking about summoning the craft.
If you're summoning, what does that even mean? You're talking about a phenomenon that exists in the spiritual realm. I mean, that's more like a seance than a science expedition, right? Right. Doesn't make it any less real, by the way, but it changes the category.
Changes the category. And I've been talking about this for some time because I've been describing this political horseshoe model where the right will see aliens as demons, increasingly so, and the left will increasingly see them as evolved humans. Leftist, progressive, utopianism, salvation comes from science. The right, traditional values, religion, good versus evil, going back to an older paradigm. And this is the big clash. They engineered it this way. This is all by design. So does Tucker really believe what he says he really believes? No, not at all. This is all narrative designed to maintain a structure. This is interesting. One shot dead at a local tavern. I just happened to be walking into a grocery store, and I walked by this tavern, and someone comes out screaming for an EMT, and then he ran into the restaurant. So I followed up on it, and it turned out that I walked by there just as someone got shot in the chest. I never go into these places here for, well, obvious reasons if you look at it, but hopefully they shut it down. But the city has such a bad reputation. This is right across the street from where I work. It seems like a very unlucky corner, and soon there's going to be a new gas station across the street, so I think things will be a little more exciting. The murder rate here is rather high. If you haven't seen it, it's a really good documentary about the city. You might want to watch it if you ever come down here. Watch it first. It's called Breaking Bad. All right. Open phones, 505-510-4226. It's been a few days, so we're just catching up. Nothing too serious. Hunter Biden was pardoned. We only care because it affects our case versus Q/Goldfinch. Let's look into this Kash Patel a little bit here, because this is someone who is going to be the FBI director, and he's always been big on Q. He's vowed to take on the deep state, which doesn't exist, by the way. There is no deep state. There is only the state. And here's a tweet from his on December 1st, having a beer with Q right now. And I'm wondering, well, who could this be? Who is Kash Patel having a beer with? You know, many think it might be General Flynn, but I think I know. And I'm putting pressure a little bit here. I'm trying to prod Alex Jones into just releasing the information. He owes us. Think about it. Alex Jones knows who Q is, and so does Joe Rogan. He's talked about this multiple times, and he hasn't told anybody. If anybody has an obligation to speak, it's Jones. His entire listenership should know that he has been more or less informed about what Q is, and had he let this information out sooner, maybe it would have prevented the QAnon shaman from running into the Capitol. I mean, he bears some responsibility for agitation. Joined by Your Name says, what did I miss so far? Right now, New Jersey's being invaded by drones, which is a contentious event prophesied by a supercomputer in 2009. The temporal marker that indicated we would be seeing this event was Joe Rogan inviting Donald Trump onto his podcast. If that sounds crazy, it's because I got it from Q Street. Well, we'll see if Jones ever talks. He said he doesn't, quote, betray confidences. Let me play a clip here again. If you're just catching up, if you're in New Jersey, you're being invaded by drones.
Hey, Ernie and Candace, the FAA has placed a temporary restriction on drone flights over Picatinny Arsenal and over Trump National Golf Course in Bedminster. When these drones were first spotted 2 weeks ago, the Morris County prosecutor's office...
Okay, well, it couldn't be the alien invasion because these have been there for 2 weeks. So we'll say no. No invasion. FBI is investigating it.
Currently, small car-sized drones that people are spotting flying over New Jersey in the middle of the night. Look at this. One woman there took the video you're seeing. So that's it. It looks like it's flying pretty low. And from that perspective, it looks very large, right? And all those lights in the sky that you see there, see those lights? Those are apparently drones as well.
All right, big deal. You know, Amazon's going to be delivering stuff by drones very soon in an area near you. So just got to get used to it. Nothing to see here. All right, moving on. What's your take on South Korean and martial law? Yeah, I saw that. South Korea, martial law. I'm waiting to see. You know, I'm not hopeful, but it would fit the narrative if Putin would go ahead and send something. The Satan too, or maybe the Poseidon. Someone sent this to me. Apparently, Billie Eilish has got a big ring on it with the number 33. What could that mean? Is there any celebrity who's not part of Club 33? Devil hand signs, covering one eye. It's always the same with them. What is that? It's one of the earliest rabbit holes that I think I ever peeked into. Now, this is something to look forward to. Again, I'm just going to play a short clip. This is a recent update from McToon. December 14th through the 18th. McToon and Witsit Gets It will be in Antarctica.
17 days to Flurfs on Ice. It's November 26. Let me check. Hold on. 27. November 27. And we will be on the ice.
Now, this is McToon. He and I debated. And I told him I didn't believe in space stations. And he said, you can just get your app and go outside and look at it. And I said to him, have you ever seen it? And he said, He's just like, He drew a blank. Thought he was buffering. It's like he didn't know what to say. I don't think he's a bad person, and he wasn't willing to lie. So he didn't even fabricate like most glurfs would. He just said, no, I haven't seen it. That, to me, is what I call shifting the burden of proof. Like, I haven't seen it, but the evidence is there. Go look for it. Like, yeah, Bigfoot exists. Go look. How can you say if you haven't looked? Well, because it's an extraordinary claim. So the burden of proof isn't mine. It's pretty simple. Got a post here from Messianic Charlatan. Diddy's bodyguard reveals Diddy's disturbing bird sacrifice. There's a bird sacrifice ritual before the 1999 shooting verdict. Let's go ahead and play this, because there has been a lot of talk about Diddy, and I recently watched the movie Blink,
off per writing aid this
Blink twice with Channing Tatum. Interesting too, because that movie's about mind control, and then he was just in Fly Me to the Moon, which is ultimately about mind control. So let's listen to Gene Deal revealing the bird sacrifice by Diddy.
So now, before we get to the courts, me and Puff stops in the, Central Park, and we walk towards the boathouse. And I'm wondering where we going, bro. You know what I'm saying? We're in the park. I'm wondering where we going. And as we going towards the boathouse, I look in the distance, and it's this man in all black.
Okay. Man in all black. Let me scroll forward. White collar. I couldn't be sure, couldn't be positive, but it looked like he had the white collar. Goes on, and I want to get to the part where he talks about the bird. Okay, here we go.
It had smoke in it, and he started doing it around Puff. And then he went back and forth. And then he went up and down with it, sideways with it, then back around him. And then he put it down. And then he put his hand on Puff's head, and I guess he started, saying something.
Some kind of spell to influence the verdict, I suppose. Probably not that uncommon. It's not really a mainstream practice, but it's not uncommon. But it is kind of interesting connecting this to everything else. And here it is. I think he says it was a dove.
That was a dove. That was a bird. Puff just got up. Puff just looked at the dude and just...
Well, he does have a tattoo on his back that would suggest he's into something like that. Interesting information. Okay, let me catch up on your comments. Someone here said they'd seen the 24-hour sun. Danny O. Slash. You've seen it in Yellowknife, Canada. Well, they're going to Antarctica to see it, and this should advance the conversation one way or the other. I don't know what kind of responses we're going to see from Witsit Gets It, or generally the Flat Earth Domers, who have an entire religious paradigm, not built on science, but built on the Bible, their unique interpretation of it. And it's not really compatible. And I'm interested to see where this goes. And I've said from the very beginning of this channel that the model first approach is unscientific by the very virtue of your model pre-exists the information, and new information has to be able to change your model or invalidate it. But if your model's coming from something like the Bible, you're kind of stuck with it. So we'll see where they go with that. TMZ reports the confession of, yeah, I saw that. TMZ, they reported that O.J. Simpson's bodyguard said he did it. Like, that would have been useful and more interesting information maybe a couple of years ago. But since O.J. is allegedly dead, now Megyn Kelly is still with us. Many believe that Megyn Kelly is Nicole Simpson. Does anybody here believe that? The thing is, anything's fakeable now. But the existence of deep fakery isn't really something that you can debate. It's just a part of life you have to accept. We live in a deep faked world. Planet Netflix in the Disney universe. Your Name says, I don't think they're going to do much in Antarctica. They'll probably just take selfies. Well, you know, this was a $30,000 trip, and most people refused it, and that really stunned me. I mean, someone's offering you a trip to go and observe something in Antarctica, hang out with the penguins, and you're going to say no, because why? And one of the dumbest excuses I heard, and I'm not going to name names, but this person said they were worried that if they went, they would be tricked. Now, I think he was worried about app sales, but I'm pretty sure he just doesn't want to be. I think that's what it is. He doesn't want to be. He doesn't want to lose his revenue stream from his model-based app. But he claimed that they would trick him by using a sun simulator. And I don't know what a sun simulator is, but apparently he claims they could dangle it from a helicopter and go around him for 24 hours. Which makes zero sense to me either. Oliver says, Cunify does a good analysis on the final experiment. Well, it's not an experiment, it's an observation. But does this observation invalidate the flat earth domed model? Well, the flat earth domed model has never been validated in the first place, unless you consider a selective fringe interpretation of the Bible to be validation, but no one's ever touched the dome. And I would ask them, what's the curvature of the dome? Or is the dome flat? And if it's flat, does it ever touch the ground? If it is a dome, like an upside down bowl, then does it touch the ground? And what's on the other side? Does it continue to go down? Are we inside of a glass ball? So many questions. But none of them were curious about going to the edge. Eddie Bravo was offered a ticket. Alex Jones offered it to him. I believe Tim Pool told Alex Stein he would send him to Antarctica. So Alex Stein chickened out. Eddie Bravo turned it down. And they both said, if you go, the Navy will kill you. They actually claim to believe, which it's impossible, but they claim to believe that there's a perimeter of naval forces ready to stop you. Danny says, I saw it back in the 80s. I doubt it was a simulator. It's grasping at straws is what that is. It's also pandering to the ignorant. And there are some things that I think should be called out. There are deliberate appeals to ignorance where the people professing to believe certain things can't possibly believe these things. They might say they believe it, but you know, when someone says, I believe, you can just dismiss it. How about come back when you know something? Because I can't prove that you really believe this, and your belief doesn't give it any more legitimacy. It's the facts that matter. People say, I'm just asking questions. Well, just asking questions isn't the same thing as skepticism. The just asking questions crowd doesn't follow up with trying to answer their own questions, but rather they're just spreading confusion. And they're not always good faith questions. There are such things as bad faith questions. Questions that are asked in ignorance, selective ignorance of the available answers. Kevin Mooring says Timcast has been gatekeeping lately. When has he not been? Anybody in the world stage paradigm, specifically on the fringes of the political horseshoe, are by their very nature gatekeepers. Although Tim Pool, he had no problem bringing Donnie Darkind on, who is just some anon with a Trump avatar preaching the gospel and claiming that Trump was the Antichrist. You remember that guy? Disproportionately popular based on the ChatGPT garbage he was churning out, and yet he was heavily promoted. And I thought, who believes any of this stuff? This is just noise. They want to really make sure that the noise drowns out any signal, so that any conversation about the incoming Trump head wound that we were having on Twitter was drowned out by Donnie Darkind. Well, Donnie Darkind was on Tim Pool. Didn't dox himself for some reason. Thankfully, he got doxed. Turns out he's a big MAGA, major Trump guy. Big influencer. He's made a living as a MAGA for years. And he was also playing the opposition. So I wonder how many other huge Twitter accounts that are effectively anonymous are people we know, are just playing, who don't even believe what they're posting. Like, I would suggest that any QAnon account, like Doc Holliday, any QAnon account with more than 100,000 followers that doesn't show their face, that doesn't have a real person behind it, is an operation. Nick says, I'm glad Whitsitt is going. It's pretty logical. In his early streams, he talked about how Trump and Musk were actors on the world stage. I know you don't agree with him on the faith stuff. Yeah, I disagree with Whitsitt on a few things. He's a big Jew hater. That, hate who you want. But if your conspiracy theory is that they run the world, you're just not informed. I don't even know if he's an auto hoaxer. And he believes in chemtrails. And his arguments are because of my government docs. So you say he's logical. I agree with you. He's logical in these debates. But outside of that debate, he doesn't apply his own logic. And he's very well versed in logical fallacies, but he doesn't see the logical fallacy implicit in what are they spraying? What are they spraying is a loaded question fallacy. And also the whole debate, flat or round, is a either or fallacy. It doesn't include the third option. Shape agnosticism, or maybe what we've been shown is itself questionable, therefore we need to bring into the conversation special effects. He never talks about special effects. We know they use special effects. I'm talking about simulations, mass casualty drills, CGI actors, all the propaganda that constitute the augmentations, the way that the media lies to us. That's never talked about in their debates. They don't talk about media fakery. That's not just a blind spot. It's something they're deliberately ignoring. I would almost go so far as to say he's a gatekeeper. If they're not talking about the special effects, they're gatekeeping. They're keeping it confined in the science versus pseudoscience false debate that presumes there is no third and more rational alternative, which to me is agnosticism. Mudflood says, they do weather modification. It's not that hard. They heat up the upper atmosphere and cloud seed. No, cloud seeding doesn't work that way. Cloud seeding is when you have an existing cloud. And then you add in, you add your cloud seeding spray, which is really just allowing the existing cloud to be a little more productive, but it's really not creating clouds. So cloud seeding doesn't constitute weather modification. I mean, watering your lawn, watering your backyard, on a very basic level, you could say that's some kind of climate modification, but no, these are not really the same thing. It's apples and oranges. There is no such thing as weather modification in that sense. That's all mostly a hoax. It's a right-wing hoax. Because think about it. Left-wingers all believe in climate change. Right-wingers don't. But right-wingers all believe in geoengineering. And not to mention, they don't even know what it is. I mean, look up geoengineering. It's not a secret program. It's what the environmentalists do to stop climate change. So even the word geoengineering is misused by the people who claim it exists. So it's all Bill Gates-ophobia. Danny says Jews control everything, that the spawns of... Yeah, I don't know if I don't believe in Satan. If I don't believe in Satan, your conspiracy theory doesn't make sense to me. Like, you might as well just say Satan runs the world. Well, then, are you going to church? Are you praying about it? Like, are you super religious, or do you not really believe it? Like, I don't believe that you really believe in Satan. I really don't believe that you believe in the devil. I think there are things people say they believe because it's a form of virtue signaling, but you don't have enough information to believe it's true. So you can't believe it. It's unbelievable. Unless you can, maybe call in and inform me, show me. Where's your evidence of this Satan that runs the world? But that's a major red herring, and it's meant for entry-level conspiracy theorists, and it's all part of the political divide. Because if you say they run the world, well, what about the left? Do they agree? No, critical race theory says that whites run the world. Systemic racism is the big thing. So who's correct? Critical race theorists or critical Jew theorists? You can't both be right. You both claim to know who runs the world. So who is it? Who's the bigger victim? And if you're saying they run the world, whoever your they is, you're saying I'm a victim. I'm being oppressed. So who's oppressing you, Danny O'Slash? Who's replacing you? And you probably believe that too. And I mean, just based on what you revealed, I could probably list out I'll say 10 or 15 bullet points of things that I'm certain you believe. Military age men. You believe that this group's behind mass immigration, they're replacing you. You believe this group's behind all the corrupt movies. I mean, I study worldviews. That's all we talk about. And if your worldview is based around a scapegoat, it's very easy to discern where you're coming from and what you fall for. For example, you'll say they did 9/11. Well, nobody died on 9/11. You don't have any evidence. All the evidence that we have examined suggests it was a psyop. So if nobody died, then nobody did it. What does that do to your scapegoat story? You're so mad at them because they did something that nobody even did. So your entire worldview is based on your oppression narrative and the oppressor that you've identified. And I'm saying it's all fallacious. You live in a fiction, a fantasy. J5 says, yeah, look, I don't believe in Satan in the literal sense. I understand what people mean when they say it, but I also look at Satan today. It has been sort of merged with the character of Lucifer, a literary construct, and then the biblical stuff's not even accurate. They kind of made it up. It's like their inspiration is John Milton or something. And there's a lot of syncretic blending of Satan and Saturn. And speaking of Saturn, I was talking about Megalopolis earlier, and check this out. At the end of Megalopolis, and the character played by Adam Driver is a predictive programming stand-in for Donald Trump. They're having their Saturnalia festival, which is Christmas. That's when the baby was born in the movie. At the Saturnalia party, Elvis is there, and he's performing America the Beautiful, Donald Trump's inauguration song from 2017. So putting it all together, in Megalopolis, Elvis, or an Elvis impersonator, is wrapped in an American flag, singing Trump's inauguration song. Well, here is an Elvis impersonator hanging out with Trump at Mar-a-Lago on Sunday. Didn't he give Elvis some kind of an award at some point? He should invite the Village people to Mar-a-Lago for as often as they use that song. They all get up and dance to it like 10 times a day. It's like on the hour. Everybody gets up and does Trump's YMCA dance. Kevin says, Trump plays the Q crowd like a fiddle. Well, they're extremely credulous. It's easy. It's actually kind of sad. They have a susceptibility and a desire to believe. They're in their own, I call it the Q-universe. It's a different universe. And it matters. It matters because we're talking about mental models and the map of the world versus the real thing. And our mental maps are augmented by media. And the media is augmented by fictional universes. Like the Batman universe is very prevalent in a lot of the happenings in the world today. And the Q-universe is an entire fictional universe in which there's this secret war going on between the deep state and the white hats. And that the people who are fighting this fight on the Chans or on Twitter are communicating with the deep state. And they're hearing about this fight. So they live in a different world. But it's all in their head. That's what's interesting. The Truman Show is in your head. It doesn't match reality. And if you don't like that, they give you all kinds of alternative belief systems to add on to it. So they're entertained. You can't say the QAnoners aren't entertained. Kevin Mooring says, famous photo mashup of Trump and Elvis. He keeps the psyop going. Yeah, he also shared the image of himself mashed with Rocky. But you got to double check all the Trump postings because his Truther account has these postings, these screeds he delivers every night, and people are making fake ones up and posting them. And nobody cares. It's really like choose your own apocalypse. Believe what you want to believe. Subjectivity is encouraged. To be honest, the media skeptics are the only objectivists in the world today. Objectivity isn't possible if you treat media as literally like a window to the world, like it's like literally true. You're a fundamentalist. If it's on the screen, it happened. No, you cannot take that for granted. It might be true 90% of the time because good liars don't lie with every breath, but they strategically lie when they can get away with it through your blind spots. And that's generally what we're talking about when we say psyops and hoaxes. We're talking about the instances where they are steering our history through fake news. They're acting out pre-scripted events for our benefit. So we're talking about memory hackers. We'll get back into that. And again, Kash Patel says Q has been right about so many things. Name one thing. Name one thing Q has been right about from 2017 when Q said Hillary Clinton was about to be arrested. I can't think of a single thing. The one thing Q did say that nobody believes him on, he said JFK Jr. is not alive. That hasn't stopped them from starting a cult. Elon Musk tweeted, the government needs to stop wasting your hard-earned money. Because he's going to be part of the he's going to be part of this, the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. The government needs to stop wasting your hard-earned money. And I completed the sentence for him. On faking space travel. Now, he didn't answer me. Kash Patel wrote a book, a children's book. So you could read your children this book, The Plot Against the King. And it's about Donald Trump as a king. So you can read this to your children who wouldn't know the difference between a king and a president. I'm sure this is healthy. One Assassination Under God, Marilyn Manson's new album. If you watch the video, he's depicted as the Umbrella Man. The Umbrella Man is one of the characters from the JFK assassination. He was later identified, but that doesn't quite explain it all. Because he was noted for being so close to the scene. And it's just this mysterious guy with an umbrella. The Umbrella Man is the one in the dark jacket on the far right here. I'll see if I can zoom in for you. But it's safe to say that this fake event was a closed movie set. And there were likely multiple takes. And JFK was likely, in the shot that you saw, a Muppet. And Jackie was likely deploying the squib when she had her hand next to his head, and then his head explodes. Some said, oh no, he was shot by her. She was the real assassin. No, if anything, she was activating the squib, and that's why she got in the back of the car to get the canister. That's one likely explanation. But anyway, Lee Harvey Oswald did not shoot JFK. Stanley Kubrick did this. Stanley Kubrick shot JFK. He directed the whole scene. And one of the big clues, again, Dr. Strangelove came out 11/22/63. So here you have Marilyn Manson as the Umbrella Man. And he's significant in this picture for a few reasons. He's been a part of this body of predictive programming and PSYOP content from really probably the Littleton shooting, which they blamed on him. But then it goes deeper because he did in fact play the role of JFK being assassinated in a previous video. And this video's release was delayed because JFK Jr. just happened to die at that time. And the video referenced the son of JFK indirectly because it's about JFK being the second coming. And since he's dead, the world had all their hopes in the third Jesus. And so there's this kind of a strange connection here, but it goes back. It's fascinating to me that Marilyn Manson's video from 1999 has the exact belief system of the QAnoners in 2020. David says JFK was a hoax. Well, the JFK shooting was a hoax, yes. And I think Marilyn Monroe's death was probably fake as well. We have to look at all of these. And one more thing. Something just came out. This was in Vanity Fair. Just recently came out. And this is one of the strangest stories that I think I've read in a long time. Why JFK staged his own murder in a James Bond-inspired film 2 months before his assassination. The Untold Tale, Never Before Seen Photos, a 1963 home movie directed by Jackie Kennedy. We went through this before. It's a great article, and it describes how exactly 2 months before the event, they staged his murder, and they filmed it. They even involved the Secret Service and a bunch of Heinz 57 ketchup. So if that doesn't tell you anything, I mean, what at a minimum, I guess you could say, it was in their heads. Maybe they're enamored with the idea of faking the spectacle. But I think it's not sinister. It's not like it's a prophecy, but it's an indicator of how unserious the assassination was. Kevin says, have you seen people laying on the ground during the JFK shooting? No, but I remember listening to some of the people describing it, like some of the eyewitnesses. If you go back, first of all, you have predictive programming. You've got Suddenly. You've got the Manchurian Candidate. You have the news commentators on that day talking about all the failures of Secret Service in the past and how previous assassinations had occurred. So we already have all of that. If you go to the eyewitness accounts, a lot of it is just obviously scripted and made up. One of them's talking about seeing the dog in the car with Jackie. Like, it's obviously script readers. All right, let's move on. There's quite a lot going on the world stage right now. I'm just holding off. We have only a few more minutes today, but we'll continue tomorrow. And I want to schedule another live Discord chat so we can talk about planning the next Auto Hoax Con. Predictive programming, this is posted by Dog Days. Predictive programming for a race war, courtesy of Netflix. So if you want to know what's going to be on the news tomorrow, watch the Netflix today. It's called The Madness. And I have another example of this. Netflix released Rebel Ridge. I watched Rebel Ridge, and it opens up with a scene where this character is, and this goes deep, but just a brief synopsis, racist cops brutalizing a black man, stealing his money. Now, right after Rebel Ridge comes out, Tyreek Hill from the Miami Dolphins, in a very public way, and it's viral, gets roughly pulled out of his car by the cops and tossed in the street. And people compared it to Rebel Ridge because it came out just 2 days before. And there are so many levels to this where you can prove, I can demonstrate how these things are connected, even to the names of the actors. So these are psyops, these are publicity stunts. So this is something that's probably likely. This came out 2 weeks ago. It's called The Madness.
I think I'm getting framed for murder.
Now let me see if I can get a breakdown of it. Where do you run when you have a bullseye on your back? You cannot escape the madness. A conspiracy thriller. coming to Netflix on November 28th. Okay, I'm going to have to watch this. I'm going to have to re-up my Netflix, and I will watch it, and I'll see what's in it. This is not going to be this is what I mean when I say we have a predictive model. If this movie contains scenes that happen in the future or are happening right now, then it's safe to say it's not a coincidence, and we are in fact looking at the deliberate alignment between entertainment and future psyops. That's the connection. Entertainment, psyops. They use the entertainment to prime you for the psyops. Psyops follow art. That's their formula. That's what they try to hide with erroneous explanations for the coincidences we see. These are not coincidences, but it doesn't mean they come from a higher source. They're not coincidences. They are evidences of the deliberate entrainment of the entertainment and the future news, and the psyops in particular, with specificity. I mean, you can really find the directors, I think, who are responsible for the various psyops. They always follow what we have been prepared for. Okay, we'll have to continue this tomorrow. We have just a few more moments here. The next Discord chat, we're going to probably do it, if not tonight, tomorrow for sure. No alien invasion today. But I want to do a Discord chat tomorrow and discuss the possibility of AutoHoaxCon for December the 14th. And this will be the 3rd. And AutoHoaxCon is going to be, it's a conference. We're doing a series of conferences where we get the most, I think, prolific content creators in this field together, and we all just kind of do panels and talk about whatever we think is important to understand when we're examining fake news media from a skeptic's perspective. And the next one is going to be on the 14th. And I'll put out a flyer and also an invitation for anybody who wants to be a contributor. The last ones have been very productive, eye-opening, in fact. The predictive programming phenomenon, these seemingly eerie coincidences actually have a very mundane explanation. It's advertising. It's subliminal. It's propaganda. But there's nothing mystical about it. But the ones who are mystified by it fail to take into account here the intent behind these things. And that's what we're actually examining here. In this case here, with the madness, it has some sort of a race war connotation. Or megalopolis has a connotation for a major psyop necessitating a one world government. And that's what the end of megalopolis is about. And you can't separate our political theater of the day from these movies. I mean, it really is Make Rome Great Again. It's definitely about MAGA. But yeah, we'll catch up tomorrow with the Discord chats. And so if you're subscribed to the newsletter, you'll get those notifications in your inbox. So make sure you're subscribed. I'll put a link below. It's just to make it easy. It's ips.monster. And if you scroll down to Discord, that's where we have our voice chats. And that's a separate podcast. I call it the IPS Deep Think Tanks. And that's where we're able to talk as a group. And again, this next one, the focus will be the next AutoHoaxCon. So tomorrow we'll catch up, and likely we'll do it tomorrow right after the live stream, so we can get the most number of people to show up. I think last time we had upwards of 20 people in the chat. Make sure I haven't missed anything else. Tim Poole said, no more income tax, tariffs only. Do it. I asked him, what about weekly $100,000 checks from Russia? He didn't respond. But if he believes in tariffs, what is his opinion on people making $100K a month from Russia under the table? Shout out to Infinite Plane Radio for Machine Inferno. Another subscriber. Comment there. This is an interesting article, really quick. Battles, social commentary, and 80,000 characters, how Marvel forged the 21st century's most worshipped gods. We also live in the Marvel universe, and they are, for all intents and purposes, the gods. Now, a lot of people not only get predictive programming wrong, but they don't get the extent of the fakery correct. So for example, Hidden America is a good account. Hidden America. He covers esoterica. And he's talking about the Trump event. And somebody said to him, if they faked it, it doesn't account for the 2 people who were shot. So they can't let go of the idea that people die at these events. And here is this guy's response. And I'm saying his content is good, but he's wrong right here. It's not, quote, fake, it's scripted. It means people do die. Some get shot. Some aren't even in on the con. And the next person, the world is a stage, says, lots of people die in false flags. Think 9/11, but they're still scripted. That's incorrect for a lot of reasons. But these are misconceptions that I think we're largely spearheading a pushback against. I think we've covered pretty much everything. Kash Patel, QAnon sense. We'll get into more of this tomorrow. But again, tomorrow will be on Discord Live. So don't miss it. Thanks for your comments. And this is Fepe Akbar, Allergic to Bullshit, featuring Lean Dion.
With your deception, keep it real, that's a profession. Like the whole world is pretending. Found the truth around the penguin. Get a gang on with a blessing. All the other gang are stressing. RPSC on a nesting. Only real one's gonna get this. Fake ones don't accept this. They can miss some message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah. Find them in our records. Auto host a message. Squad are represented. Killing you with knowledge, yeah. The uppers getting better. Oh, you're so affected. Cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah, the whole thing is a setup. We got it and we get it. Offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah, it's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable. Facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable. Give a fuck about saving you. We could keep on playing you. You just keep complaining too. Game is unescapable unless you're with the gang or no. Messing with the penguin. Messing with the penguin, 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 fucking with the penguins, yeah, with the penguins. I'm coming with a vengeance, trying to make you come to your senses. Forget the general consensus, just pay attention. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I'm clenching, my back wrenching, representing always the most superior, independent media. We got that real shit fucking encyclopedia. We're bringing an end to this mass hysteria. They wanna know why it's so serious, cause you must be delirious. If you're still believing stuff, get a grip and show some evidence for your bold claims. We don't play no games, we stay relentless, exposing hoax events. Quick, the IPS are making an entrance. Busting doors down, cause now's the time for interventions that I mentioned. We're affecting so many men across the spectrum. We stand out from the crowd, we don't blend in. Steady gaining tremendous momentum. There's nothing close resembling. Check the emblem, it's a penguin, not a gremlin. Just letting you know you're on an infinite plane, it's never bending. We strike like 10 pin, killing all fears and breaking the tension. Gotta know the hopes on me, digging deep in the trenches. Come and join in, be adventurous. Quit being so sensitive, forget the censorship, we ain't telling fibs. Messing with the pen.